a chant that we say. So we talk about nationally that number 2%. And so when we come to the national convening, we might have a room full of people, and somebody might shout out 2%, and somebody says it's not enough. So we're going to exercise that a little bit this morning, reinforce that in solidarity for all of the black male educators all across the country who are working hard every day in classrooms, making it happen for schools and community. We say 2%.
Not enough.
2%.
Not enough.
2%.
Not enough.
All right. So without further ado, it is my pleasure, my honor. I'm hyped. I've been like waiting. Once I got the yes from Dr. Emden's team, I was like, yes, this is really about to happen. We wanted to bring this brother in who has been speaking all over the country. All over the country. You can catch him on a TED Talk, South by Southwest, see him on BET, see him PBS. He's all over the place because he's really championing the cause. And like I said, he represents a new wave of black male educators, black educators in general, who's taking a stance in our communities, in our schools, who are saying, you know what, 2% is not enough, but we also going to make sure that we show up as our true authentic selves every day. So without, y'all look at his bio, it's on the program, Columbia University, very decorated man. And so he's going to spit some real knowledge and truth today. I always feel like I'm at church when he speaks, so I'm kind of hyped. So at this point in time, I want you all to give it up for Dr. Chris Emden.
I got one. I think I got a laugh, so I'm good.
Cool.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? So I was gonna I have slides, but I might not even need them slides. I'm gonna just throw the slides to the side and follow on myself. I'm really excited to be here. I don't need this, bro. Thank you, though. I'm really hyped to be here with y'all today. I'm gonna come down if that's all right. I'm hyped to be here with y'all today because I really wholeheartedly believe so much in this initiative and what it means and what its intentions are and what its goals are. And in this place right now, also with this work, I just want to be, vulnerable with you guys where, I'm just so wholeheartedly disgusted with the language and rhetoric around the work, around teaching and learning as it relates to men of color and teachers that, I feel like I have to even second guess my own thinking with using words because I came up in a world where I knew what those words meant. And then I exist within institutions where those words have been taken and reimagined and repurposed and then given back to me as a tool while all the sharpness of it have been gone. So I'm at a point right now in my life, even words like equity, I'm like, yo, do I even want to say equity? Right? Because the language of equity has been so distorted. Do I even want to say cultural relevance and cultural responsiveness? Like one of my OGs coined the phrase, GLB she from Philly too. And even that phrase and that word and those thoughts has become part of the lexicon and teacher preparation and teacher recruitment in a way that's so problematic because folks are engaging in poor practices and saying it's culturally relevant and it's based on their perverse notions of the culture of folks of color. And then when you call them out on their practice, yo, this is not cutting it, they're like, but it's culturally relevant. I know Paulo Freire and Gloria Latson-Billings. So even the language has been so co-opted that discourse around this work is just problematic. And so because of those reasons is why my primary tool and language and theoretical framework from engaging in this work actually is hip hop. And a lot of folks misunderstand what I mean by hip hop. Emden wants all the kids to rap. They should be rapping about their English and their science. And I do projects like that. But it's really less about that than anything else. The use of hip hop and the language of hip hop and the theory of hip hop and the sensibility of hip hop and the idea of how we teach and learn to be able to recruit more folks to teaching and keep folks in the classroom and make young folks in classrooms want to become teachers is actually essential. The idea of the embracing of a hip hop sensibility as part of what we do is, I think, the fundamental piece of the work. And what I mean by that is this. Look, when you exist within the culture, there's oftentimes a bifurcation between those who do it in the academic and intellectual way and those who do it in the colloquial way. And then you have black folks who become part of this process of identifying who's good hip hop and not, right? So yesterday, everybody went nuts. Right. Cole dropped an album, Brackets is lit. And I get that, right? And I think that what we've begun to start doing is we start intellectualizing the process of what has value in our cultural expression, right? And they be like, yo, Migos is trash though. And why I think this is important for us to understand is that a Cole and a Migos are drawing from a very similar tradition that is essential to how we reimagine how schools work. Take away the lyrics for a minute and talk about the rhythm.
Right.
Y'all with me? Take away the problematic sort of ideologies that underpin it, because we could critique that later. But talk about like the use of voice as instrument and inflection and intonation. You know what I mean? The idea of taking aesthetics and utilizing that as part of your message. And I think if we want to recruit more black males to go into teaching, the fundamental piece is understanding the nuances of hip-hop culture and expression, and not utilizing a colonizer's gaze to be able to demonize what's good and what's not, and ensure that when we get into those classrooms, we represent an authentic hip-hopness to young folks. See, when they go into classrooms and you want them to become teachers, we got to ask ourselves, who is the exemplar of a person I want to be like in front of me first? Because all that other shit, excuse my language, excuse me, but all that it don't matter. When you talk about young folks you want them to teach, it doesn't matter who's appropriate, who's not, who's intellectual, who's not. It's like, who's the person in front of me that's showing me that this is a viable outcome?
Yes. Wow.
Right? All that other stuff is trash. Like I got a person in front of me who's a teacher. When I grow up, go to college or whatever, if that's what I'm gonna do, does this person have enough swag to make me imagine who I would want to be when I'm that age? You understand what I'm saying? So while we're so preoccupied with the notion of respectability and the black male person that you have in front of him and all that, you could be black and whack. And young folks can see that. And when they see that, that person of color in front of them may be the very reason why they don't ever want to become a teacher. Because when I come up, I don't want to be like you. And there's these new, and this is why I say using hip hop, like understanding the value of aesthetics within the culture. Like when we're recruiting educators, we talk about that. Dress. You know, when I came up and seen Sterling, his frames is lit. You see Vince, you know what I mean? Got the blazer popping. And we underestimate these aspects of the nuances of our culture because we've allowed other folks to make us believe that those things are outside of being intellectual and academic. So we don't train educators to focus on that aspect of their representation of self. So you just ignore it completely. You're like, read the textbooks, be positive, do right things, know some history. And then you get to the young folks and you're so swagless that you turn them off to the process. And I know this sounds like, Eminem be wilding, like why is he going here? And the reason why I'm going here is because I am so deeply frustrated with the fact that we keep talking about what we don't got without recognizing that we ain't even focusing on the fundamental pieces of the work. I can come here and spit some theory for y'all all day about black male achievement. It's easy to do. The thing that we want to focus on is those dimensions. Are y'all with me still? Yeah. So if we talk about all that and the hip hop stuff, then we got to talk about a little history. Damn, I done left my slides. I'm just going where my heart is taking me right now. Is that all right, though? Yeah. For the record, you know why that's important as well. All this work is connected. So when we talked about aesthetics and talking about why that's valuable, let's also talk about the art of the freestyle and why that's valuable. Right. Look, Penn School of Education is not going to teach you this. No disrespect, because I know y'all here. Neither is the Temple School of Education. What I'm telling y'all is this is the sauce, right? The idea of teaching folks of color to be able to embrace their ability to go off script while maintaining the knowledge of the script. How that is a hip hop sensibility. Y'all remember when Thought went on Hot 97 and spit for like 10 minutes straight? And everybody was like, this is the great, do y'all not know this? I'm just curious. Okay, and everybody's like, this is the dopest freestyle of all time. Can we deconstruct that for a minute? So Thought went up there and spit. The whole joint was not a full freestyle. Anybody who knows, right? I'm not trying to play Black Thought. I just want us to deconstruct this for a second. He went on there and rocked out for 10 minutes straight, correct? No gaps, correct? Some of that stuff was off the top, correct? But you couldn't go off the top unless you had the writtens to hold that down. So when anybody who rhyme know, you flowing, and then you hit that spot where you know it's about to go off, then you go back to your written and drop that 4 bars. That 4 bars get you back on track, and then you freestyle again. The magic of that presentation, the magic of that delivery is based on a command of the hip-hop sensibility that understands the nuance of the freestyle as essential for connecting to the audience. So when we're preparing black male teachers, or when we're telling youngins like, yo, go teach, you want to be like, yo, you want to go teach because one, like, your swag on tilt. Look at that teacher and that teacher and that teacher who teaches. They're like, okay, right? Then you're like, plus, the art of teaching actually means a master of the creativity and the innovation of freestyle, which is a part of our collective traditions. Y'all with me? Can we have a black male teacher convening where we talk about how to lesson plan and also dump the lesson plan, because you can look in the eyes of the people in front of you and know if they're feeling you or not? Right? Can we have one where we talk about the value of aesthetics, contemporary aesthetics, and how, like, all that stuff matters, y'all? Y'all with me or not? Yeah. And let me tell you why this is important. I'm going to go a little historical. This is important because the assault on black maleness in regards to education is culpable. If we look at our collective histories, there was a point in time where there's no black intellectual in a certain era who didn't first teach. Are we aware of this dynamic? You know, now that we have this sort of upward mobility narrative, like, oh, you know, teach, I don't know, you know, like, you know, I'm just giving back, which is also a problem, right? You know, why you go teach it? Because I just want to give back. It ain't about just giving back. I don't go teach because I want to give back to young folks. I want to go teach because the black intellectual tradition requires my work in the classroom as a prerequisite or the anchor of my greatness. You know, we sell it in a way where it's like, you know, just do this to be nice. You know, nah, bro. Du Bois had to go teach. Booker T. Washington had to go teach. If you're in that tradition and that lineage, going to teach is an essential component of your greatness. So you can't recruit somebody and say, you know, come teach so you can just be nice. You got to be like, come teach so you could be great. Because our collective greatness requires that we do this. Y'all with me still? So let me go into a little narrative, a little history. Y'all still with me? You know, and you know what we invoking also is a Pentecostal pedagogy. Just for the record, I always telecast this, right? A Pentecostal pedagogy is essential for the way that we deliver information, right? And we cannot act like the Pentecostal. I'm gonna go to my story, but you know we can't act like the Pentecostal pedagogy is an accidental phenomenon. Here's what happens. All our greatest gifts related to teaching and learning have been subjugated because they've been perceived as though they're outside of the established intellectual tradition. So when I say aesthetics, folks in here are like, aesthetics? I thought you were talking about teaching. That's because society has marginalized the beauty of our aesthetics. Y'all with me? This is Dapper Dan. It's just talk. Dapper Dan out of Harlem. Y'all know, who knows Dapper Dan's story? Dapper Dan in the 80s and 90s was out there in Harlem making doper Gucci than Gucci, right? He knew that everybody wanted the brand name clothes. Young folks might not know Dapper Dan. He knew everybody wanted the brand name clothes, right? And because he knew that, he would look at the Gucci store and the Louis Vuitton store, and he realized the clothes they were making would not fit black bodies. So essentially, it wasn't made for us. But you know how we do, like, if them folks who's super popping is rocking Gucci, I want to rock Gucci too. Now, for the record, that also is not inherently negative. We like to demonize all things about us that make us magical. The idea of an aspirational aesthetic is problematic in some instances, but the fact that you want to get fly is not a bad thing. Y'all with me still? So Dan is like, yo, they want to rock Gucci. Let me make some Gucci. So he pilfered Gucci logos. Went into his lab in Harlem, made Gucci logos. Like, yo, if people want to rock Gucci, let me make it extra big, super big G's connected. Y'all feel me? He took the prints, made his own prints, and then he started designing clothes that Gucci would not make. And everybody started running to Harlem to cop Dapper Dan stuff because his stuff was more popping than the actual Gucci. Like the bootleg was more dope than the actual joint. Y'all with me still? Now, it got to a point where every celebrity now started going to Dan before they would go to the actual Gucci store. So he got super popping. So now the folks were like, yo, if he's popping like this, we got to shut this down. So they went and they shut his store down, made him damn near bankrupt, closed it down completely. Everybody was rocking Dapper Dan Gucci. Mike Tyson, Eric B. and Rakim, everybody. Cats would travel from Philly to New York, skip by Fifth Avenue, which is the actual Gucci store, and go to Harlem and cop from Dan. Y'all with me still? This all goes down for a while. They shut his store down. He's damn near bankrupt trying to make it. And then, 15 years later, Gucci comes out with a new spring line. And a jacket that was the premier jacket in a new spring line was one that was designed by Dan in the late 80s. Because they realized eventually that what they demonized was actually more beautiful than what their imaginations couldn't comprehend the dopeness of what he did. Now folks are like, wait, hold up, that's a Dapper Dan joint. Y'all shut him down. You know what Gucci did? They then went and they said, okay, can we hire you for a creative director position in Gucci? He got the position now. Can I make my point? The things that we relegate to being valueless, Dan that would say, oh, this is just lowbrow. This is just a perverse version of the authentic thing. Where the society says, put it on the margins. It ain't on the margins. It's just 15 years ahead. Y'all ain't with me. Our organic representations are 15, 20 years ahead. So when we talk about aesthetics, and we talk about presentation, and we talk about a Pentecostal pedagogy, if you're existing within the paradigm of the existing system of education, you will look at those things and perceive them to be lowbrow and not having value. Even black folks be like, oh, this aesthetics conversation, I just don't quite know if the way we dress should be how we think of ourselves. You don't realize that you are dumbing down yourself to the existing dominant intellectual paradigm when literally 20 years from now, they will wake up and say, wait, let's write a text about aesthetics in classroom practice. Y'all with me? Don't wait till 20 years. Because if we wait till 20 years, we got 20 years of young black males being disconnected from teaching and learning and wanting to be teachers. You got to do that now. So don't look at me like I'm suspect when I start talking about these dimensions. These dimensions are actually integral for us doing our work. So yes, aesthetics, yes, the art of freestyle, and yes, a Pentecostal pedagogy. Deconstruct what those things mean. How do we train teachers to understand the value of call and response in their pedagogical practice? When the pastor like, can I get an amen? And you hear the amen. That ain't accidental. Right. Where do you think he learned that from? The other pastor, the pastor's pastor. Where do you think he learned that from? That's from slave narratives. And when we talk about slave narratives, and there's a book called Deep Like the Rivers, talking about education in the slave quarters from the early 1800s. One of my favorite books. It's actually out of print right now. You read through that text, and what you find is pedagogy. You find slaves in the quarters rhyming. Right. You know, hip-hop started in the Bronx in 1979. Nah, bruh, hip-hop started on the shores of Africa. When they couldn't go to church, there was one line I love that Thomas Webber said. He goes, white folks go to church and he ain't crack a smile, but when a nigga go to church, he be smiling for a mile. Now, don't use the word. I'm quoting text, because sometimes you say this and folks get licensed, But what I'm saying is that those are bars. I just want y'all to understand. Y'all feel me or not? Nah? Those are bars being shared in the slave quarters in moments where folks were gathering to not just pray, but learn from each other. That's the time when the person who the master had taught how to read sneaks out of the house and goes back to the quarters and ensure that everybody has the same ability. Y'all with me? So contemporary pedagogy that's based on the recruitment of black males or black women or folks of color writ large has to tag into something that calls forth a larger historical narrative. And here's the thing that's beautiful about it that we don't get. That stuff is part of our social DNA. Meaning you may not have heard it before, you may not have seen it before. When you hear it and see it, it starts to resonate on another level. Who understands what I'm saying? When I talk about this idea of social DNA, it's very important. And I love Alondra Nelson writes this beautiful book about the social life of DNA. And we're not talking about social life of DNA as in how DNA takes on this ideas in social life. I'm talking about social DNA and this idea of like phenomena that we perceive to be cultural that are actually genetic. Could I say that again? Phenomena give you an example. It's this bird called a zebra finch, all right? And a zebra finch, it's a bird that it sings a beautiful song, and it's a complex and nuanced song. And scientists were so enamored by the zebra finch because of the song that it sang, right? So they were like, man, this song is so complex. How did this bird learn this song? So they went and they studied all these birds. And when they studied the birds, they found something out. They found out that the bird learned the song from an older male in its lineage. Meaning the older male would sing the song, the youngin would sit there and listen to the song, and they would learn the song from his elder. Y'all with me still? Yeah. Can we stop for a second with that too? It's this idea of the value for the elder is also essential. That's right. When I talk about this work, everybody, Emden came and did this and said this. Listen, I ain't saying nothing that the OGs ain't been saying. And I got to recognize and own that. Everybody want to be brand new, like they came up with something. Anybody come up with nothing. That's right. OG's been doing that. Here's the thing. we lose the wisdom of the OGs because we perceive ourselves to be brand new, and we allowed corporations to tell us that our culture is only youth culture. Y'all ain't ready for this word, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. Hip hop in particular has always been branded like it's youth culture. Rappers will tell you, oh, it's just for the youth, it's youth culture. The idea of hip hop as only being youth culture was not developed within hip hop. That was developed by corporations that wanted to ensure that they can feast off the lack of knowledge of young folks. And sometimes they feed you the narrative for so long, you start believing what you hear.
Right.
Y'all with me? Your role identity starts getting shifted, which impacts your core identity. Now, we got OGs in the game. You was there in the 80s. You was there in the 70s. You was rhyming. You get it. And you be like, oh, nah, you know, that hip-hop stuff, that's just for the youth. What you've done is you've allowed yourself to remove your role as elder. Y'all ain't with me? Are y'all listening or nah? Yes. You remove yourself from your role as elder. Like all the things I just can't get with the Migos. I just can't get with the Lil Zay. And listen, I get it, but check it. Das Effects was saying some nonsense in 92 too. I mean, listen, what is bum stickety bum up? Can we talk or can we be honest? So the folks that you were celebrating like you brought that true school, they was doing the same thing. And what they're doing is nuance, because what they're doing is they're using their voice as the rhythm, as an extension of the track. So it may not necessarily be about the lyrics per se. It's about what they can do with their voice to ride that beat. The same way that the West African talking drummers were riding the beat through their voice and not saying words. So if you say, I'm a 90s baby, and you can't acknowledge that you was listening to Foo Schnickens, come on now. What you're doing is you're extracting yourself from connection. You're extracting yourself from the ability to tell a good story. And then the young folks, they all be on, oh, they too old. That's not us. Because even if you look at gang culture, and again, it's another piece I get critiqued on. I wrote a piece once, a lady got mad, wrote, Ivy League professor says schools should be like gangs. And I was like, well, that's not what I'm saying, but that is what I'm saying. Look, if you look at gang culture, the notion of the OG, am I lying? I don't know how academic y'all are, so I don't know who I'm talking to. Sometimes I gotta, because I'm like, y'all know, if you're in a gang, your OG matters, no?
Yeah, it matters.
Dude could be 50, 60.
That's right.
Right? But, so innate in our culture is a respect for the elder.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But in the perverse notions of our culture, you say the culture is only for the youth. Y'all see what's going on here? Mm-hmm. So what we know to do innately is separate from the rhetoric that we've ingested, and thereby render ourselves disposable. And let me tell you something. There's no culture, biologically, I'm a science dude, there's no species, biologically, right, that survives to the maximum of its lifespan with an extraction of its elder. So when the young folks render their elders disposable, and the elders willingly separate themselves from the culture, you are making them kill themselves. You are complicit in that process. How do we, as black male educator OGs and youngins, find these points of connection and dialogue where we are honest about our own experiences with those young folks? Everybody want to act like they had a perfect life. None of us did or done. I tell young folks all the time, and people say, well, why are you so honest? Because authenticity resounds. When Jay said, real recognize realness looking familiar, I'm telling the truth because I'm telling you the full truth. That's what make the young folks listen to what I got to say. When I said, listen, youngin, we gotta work on this. Listen, I came up in the 90s, we was hitting the spots up. When a reggae song came on, it was saying boom, bye, bye, in a Bati Boy head. That was the height of misogyny and homophobia. And I was singing the song and dancing it, and I had to heal from that, to not hate a person who's like me because of their sexuality. And it was work for me to be able to do that because all of my experiences was shaping who I was. And so now as a professor in 2018, I'm not supposed to say I was homophobic. Y'all ain't with me. I ain't supposed to say that because it's not respectable to admit your biases. But I know that I got to tell that truth so them babies understand how to love each other so we can all get better. Let me tell you something. Truth is currency. Truth is currency. Authenticity is currency. Y'all with me still? And let me now get to my story about these Pullman porters in our history.
Right.
See, the Pullman, who know the Pullman porters? Raise your hands if y'all know. Couple cats, not everybody. Talk that talk, would you? A. Philip Grant, one of the greatest intellectuals of our time, right? So let's talk about these, because enough of the youngins don't know, so let's talk, right? So we had these, there was a point in time in our collective history where the chief hirees of educated black males was the Pullman Company, meaning they hired the most black folks who were educated, black males in particular who was educated. Y'all with me, black males and allies in the building? And at the time, black male who were educated only had two major options for life, career. You either were a Pullman porter or you went to teach. Y'all with me still? So if I come up and I graduate and I get my PhD or my master's, whatever you want to call it, I'm like, dang, who hiring? The school district is. But when you went to the school district, who were you teaching? They weren't going to let you go teach no white babies. I want y'all to follow me now. So you came up and your big job was to go teach folks who look like you. And here's what's interesting. If you look at the narratives of the educators who came up in that era, who went back to go teach folks who look like them, what they had to learn to do to be effective was, guess what? Get rid of all the stuff they learned. Y'all ain't with me. I went through the torture of getting the master's and the doctorate. I only got two job options, the Pullman porter or the teacher. I choose to be a teacher. When I go teach, what I learned to do when I go teach is actually get rid of all the false knowledges about how to teach that they taught me and connect in the way that I had before I got to the school to begin with. Now, this is not to say that the credential didn't matter. Because if you didn't have the credential, you couldn't have a job. Y'all with me still? I want to make a distinction between the credential and the job. If you work in this work to get the credential, then you use the information from the credential to go teach, you ain't doing a real job. Because historically, it's outside of our tradition. Y'all with me? You learn the content, but the delivery of the content can't be from the folks who gave you the content. Because if you keep it a buck with yourself, you have to struggle to get the damn content. That's a piece of it we don't talk about. There are very few honest black folks who are highly degreed who can tell a story about the torture they went through to get said degree. You made it through, yes. You got some things, yes. But there was that one professor who just ain't like you. There was them kids in that class, if you went to a PWI, who wouldn't sit next to you. There was that paper that you thought was the best paper ever and they tore it to pieces. So we have all, by the process of, y'all laughing because it's true. Some of y'all ain't passing them in classes. We ain't have a homeboy you can cheat off of. But we ain't gonna go there. Listen, ain't even that shit is a skill set.
Right.
Y'all don't wanna hear this truth. Just put it on the side and I'm gonna look like this, then look like that. And then... Y'all with me or not? So you went through a torturous experience to get the credential. Imagine, if you just break it up, imagine how foolish it is to have gone through that torture to get the credential, then go back and either A, reinforce the torture, or B, don't put young folks on to how to navigate the torture.
Right.
And we sitting there in front of them talking about be a teacher, be like me. They know you a fraud. You think them babies don't know you a fraud? They know.
That's right.
I was at a conference the other day. It was a black male convening in Oklahoma. No shade to the folks out there. You gonna put this on YouTube? Don't put it on YouTube. And I went to the conference because I love what they was doing. And they had all these dudes go to talk to all these high school students. And the idea was so beautiful. I was like, yes, I want to go. And these dudes got up there and stood behind the podium the whole time and talked, you've got to work on your grit. You've got to work on your resilience. And and I was like, yo, you might as well have not done the whole thing. The fundamental underpinning of the basic idea of the process is fundamentally flawed if you got colonized minds out there to set young folks free. If you don't understand the fact that you yourself are mentally incarcerated and you of course you want to go give back because you want to stunt on the babies. You trying to stunt on the babies because I made it. But they looking at you, and at the end of the talk, I was talking to some young folks afterwards, and they said, and one of them said to me, I said, Dr. M, I said, what do you love most about the conference today? So I love the book bag they give us at the end. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
So now we broke down what you do to go teach, right? Let's break down the other dimension. What about those black males who decided to be Pullman porters? They had to. Can you say that loud, please, bro? Yeah, listen, I got to get that bread. And let's understand, the economic dimension cannot be understated. As we recruit black male educators into teaching, we have to concurrently argue for them to be able to be compensated in a way that values what they bring. You cannot tell these babies to go teach and nobody's doing the work to ensure they get compensated for their gifts. If you want more black male teachers to go beyond 2% or 4%, guess what? Then to go beyond the 2%, they got to be incentivized.
Right.
Which means, and this is radical, they should be getting more bread than the folks who are not culturally skilled. Y'all don't want me to talk. Because if I take him from the hood, I'm making an assumption you from the hood, bro. If I'm wrong, let me know. If I take him from the hood with the credential, and I take a person who is not from the hood with the credential, and I'm going to put them in front of young people, I sure want him to be there to represent himself, but the skill set he has by virtue of his experience is far superior than that of the other person. Therefore, he must be compensated for his, street smarts is currency.
That's right.
You talk about you want to test somebody for anything else. Can you test somebody for their hood currency? What is your hood pass? You want to go teach in urban America? What's your hood pass? Are there certain things that you know? Let me move on, B. But yo fam, a lot of these cats don't know such basic fundamental knowledge, not about young people, about the hood.
Right.
Like I teach in the school, we got a culturally relevant pedagogy class, and we turned that into a the hood class. They want to go teach in the hood.
Right.
They've been recruited to teach in the hood. Ain't never been to the hood, got an apartment far from the hood.
Right.
How is this gonna work? How? So we have to go and take them there. Everybody getting on the train. This class is the hood. Class meet hood. Hood meet class. And by virtue of putting them there, 2 of them quit. And I'm like, great. I'd rather you quit now than get the credential and go kill lives later. Then we got the rest of them. Then we got to school them. This is not a voyeuristic experience. This is not, look at those hood kids in their natural element. It's to showcase to them the deficiency of their knowledge about the complexities of how they navigate. But see, we can't do that if we ourselves is shook to go back to the hood. Everybody want to be upwardly mobile. And I don't want to have this conversation. Everybody upwardly mobile out the hood. The minute you leave, they buying it up and making it more pretty than it was when you was there. Hold on to your hood.
That's right.
Battle through it.
Yeah.
I had a young person on my hood ask me, Doc. The first thing he said, Doc, you a drug dealer? And I said, they call me Doc. And I said, why you ask me that? He said, well, your whip fly. I'm like, fam, the whip gotta stay fly. That matters. Can we talk about how that matters? And he said, well, but if you was a doc for real, why would you still live here? Do you know what that did to my soul? Because that means that 13-year-old believes that in order for you to do something that has value, you gotta remove yourself from your context.
Right.
Nobody told him that. He believed that based on the information he received. I always say this on my website. If everybody is making their way out the hood, who is going back to improve it? Right. The reason why we can't recruit educators is because everybody's making their way out.
Right.
So there's nobody there to stay there. Do you know how we was getting down when we was getting down for real, before they came and fucked it all up for us? I'm sorry to use this language, y'all. Young folks. Okay, look. When you in your hood, you see everybody you need to see in your hood. Yeah. Your doctor down the block, your teacher got the next house, your counselor was that, and we infiltrated our spaces and owned our spaces. That's how we had command of our spaces. And in the interest of upward mobility, in the interest of a false narrative, I ain't making this up. Malcolm X talked about this way before. We wanted everybody so happy to make their way out. No one's left. And by the time no one that has institutional power is left, folks buy it up.
Right.
jack up the prices, and you're forced to leave anyway. And what that does is it keeps you in your nice, comfy place, and it leaves them finding an outside hood. And all that does is separate us further from each other. Y'all with me? Yeah. So when we talk about the Pullman porters, this is why I'm here with y'all with this BMEC, because we're going to talk with BMEC not only about how where Vince at? That's my man. Not only about how we recruit, but how do we compensate and how do we infiltrate.
That's right.
Those things must happen in a tandem, in a braid. When we talk about the Pullman porters, so the ones who went out there to go pull, here's the thing. They wanted to get that bread. They walked in there. But here's the thing about that narrative, that George Pullman narrative. George Pullman came up with the train. The train was supposed to be a luxury experience. Y'all with me still? And to be a luxury experience, it was the best leather seats and the best curtains. And he said, this cannot be fully luxurious unless you have somebody waiting on you hand and foot. Y'all with me? Yeah. The height of luxury is when you're waited on. So they said, who can we get to wait on them? They didn't go recruit just anybody to wait on the passengers of the train. This is important. We missed this piece historically. They necessarily chose those who were credentialed, who got the degrees. You had PhDs who were working as a Pullman porter to go make sure that the rider of the train, who probably didn't have the degree, was comfortable. Y'all with me? They had the intellectually credentialed folks to go and work to make folks who were not credentialed comfortable. Y'all with me too? Yes. So we talk about this idea of a diminishing of black intellectual power for the sake of white comfort. That was a narrative of the Pullman porter. Y'all with me still? How is that not K through 12 education as well? A diminishing of black intellectual power for the sake of white comfort. Because K through 12 education is an enterprise of white comfort. No, or am I lying? Shall I break down the examples for you if you want? The charter school that's hyper-focused on respectability politics and making sure the kids all wear black shoes and have their shoulder against the wall as they walk down the hallway, marching down as though they special, and them kids are just learning to hate their own community and hood for the comfort of the person who funded that school. Right. That's white comfort. Right. That hires black teachers. Right. The urban public school who takes the first year teacher and makes them the dean of behavior. Who hype as hell that he got a position as a dean, not knowing that he was put in that position simply to silence the black babies for the sake of their comfort. Look, if we're not aware of the machine, we can't break it and fix it. If we're scared to talk about the nuances of what's happening, and here's the thing, there are things we can do, they're culpable and tangible and practical things that we can do, but if you're not having a conversation about the actual problem, you're dancing all around it. What's some things you could do? Say hell no. Say, hey, for the record, y'all, black folks is loud. Look, when we say these are the things, again, because I know I'm rubbing somebody the wrong way. Are you trying to say that all black folks are loud? Do you think that all kids listen to hip hop? I'm not saying all. I'm saying in spaces of black comfort. Can we talk? Right. In spaces of black comfort, the elevated expression of the visceral nature of who we are comes forth. Yes. Look at you as professor or teacher, and then think of you at the barbecue. That's right. Can we talk? Are you the same person? Why not? No, it's important. Why not? Huh? You want to make them comfortable. And let me tell you something. There's a policing of the imagination. Remember when Du Bois talked about the double consciousness? It's more layered than that in a contemporary era. Because I think it's not about just being black and American. It's because now there's a colonization of blackness and acceptable blackness. Respectability, like Kimberly Crenshaw tells us so brilliantly, the idea of respectability has owned the nature of blackness. So it's not like being black and being American. You could be American and black, or the version of black that America wants you to be, right? It's just that acceptable Negro phenomenon, right? And in that, you create a double hierarchy, which now becomes, okay, I'm black and I'm American. Oh, what a challenge. What about I'm black and hood? Yeah. Hoodness matters. We're not talking about socioeconomically advantaged black folks. Now, there are some gaps with socioeconomically advantaged black folks and their white counterparts as well. Y'all know that, right? So places where we are achieving monetarily on the same level as those folks. Why? Because them folks are going through historically not being able to find themselves no more. When you've been away from the hood for long enough, there's no way you could win. It's colonizing to the thought. I gave a TED Talk recently. I didn't mean to bring up the TED Talk, but I gave a TED Talk. I gave a TED Talk recently and I told a story. As an academic and as a scholar, you're an Ivy League scholar now, so it's, you feel extra special. At least that's what they try to make you feel. I started realizing it was all a game. It took a while. 4 years in, I was like, wait a minute. But I came in the game and I was like, you know what? I want to impact my community. That's why I went to teach to begin with. That's why I got the doctorate and I got this platform and I'm going to make it happen, right? And then I started realizing, like, I would go to conferences to speak and they'd be like 2 people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'd be like, come on, y'all, let's get this work done, work with these young folks. And the 2 people would be like, well, I agree, but and I got caught up in this sort of theoretical conversation around what to do. And I started like, oh yeah, well, let's just read more Bourdieu on habitus. So and I got caught up in that. Y'all with me still? Mind you, it's only 2 of them. And I'm caught up in the desires of one of the 2. Y'all with me? I would go to the same educational conference and I would turn a corner and there would be people on stage with hundreds of people in front of them. And the hundreds of people came to hear about what? Urban education. You go and do the research. The most cited educational researchers and sociologists are those who talk about the nature of urban America. They ain't from there, but they experts on it. Y'all with me still? And I would go and I'd be like, yo, how you talk about the hood? He got hundreds of people.
Right.
And then I'm listening to what he's saying, and it's suspect.
Right.
And everybody's listening. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm gonna get that audience. Not for the sake of just having an audience, but I'm like, yo, if I'm talking to 2 people and they gotta be caught up, he got 100, 200, 300 people and he talking trash, I'm gonna find out what they did. So this is what I did. Young folks, it's important for you too. I picked my exemplars. They're not my heroes, they're my exemplars. This is for all of us. Now, I hope I'm giving you a little bit of game on just what I learned. So I started looking at them I wasn't rocking with them, but I was rocking with the platform they had.
Right.
So I identified them cats. Everybody in your field, identify them. And I had their names up on my wall. And then I did a history on who they were. And I went to where they went to school, where did they publish articles, how many articles they published. And I was like, well, I'm gonna write an article then. Where you went. You tell me no the first time, I'll put it back. Because if that's what it takes to have the platform, I gotta do what I got. Y'all learning something or not?
Right, yeah.
Am I going too far, too deep? So I followed them all. You got this, you got a book? Shit, I'm writing a book. So I did all.
Right.
By the way, my book lit too. But so I followed the formula, and eventually one day I'm at home and I get a letter in the mail. And you know it's a dope letter when it's not an email, it's in the mail. And you can tell how good the mail is by the paper. I'm like, well, this envelope is fancy. Yeah, like little things on it. I'm like, all right. And I open up the letter and it says, Dear Professor Emden, you've been invited to engage in a conversation with the top educational researchers and policymakers in the country. So I was hyped because I'm like, yes. Because now I'm going to go talk to them folks who got all the audiences. Y'all still with me? I ain't lose you, did I? No. Okay. So now I'm so hyped. The day of the event, I'm turned. In the morning, like, my wife was like, yo, you want breakfast? I'm like, nah, no breakfast today. Because 7 p.m., I'm at the meeting with the people, and we're going to get it popping. She was like, you sure you want to eat? I was like, nah, I'm good. And I was so nervous I couldn't eat because this was my opportunity. You ever feel like you had that one? They ain't never invited me before, so I'm hyped. No lunch all day. I'm reading, researching, going back, reading my own articles. It's 7 o'clock, I walk into the event. When I walk into the event, it was fancy, chandeliers, all that. So I'm like, oh yeah, it's about to go down. I go in there, I'm in the event space, and then 7:05, something started to hit me. Guess what it was? Hunger. I had eaten nothing all day because I was so hyped to get here. So I'm like, where the food at? So I'm looking around, no food. Mind you, all these folks are now talking to each other. Oh, and the article from this is this, and this policy, and they all getting it in. But I am so hungry, I can't even talk. Like, I'm that hungry. So they talking like, so what do you think? And then I'm like, where the food? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Y'all with me still? So now I'm noticing they're looking at me suspect, and I know what they're thinking. Why did we even invite this guy to begin with? It was just the hunger, though. So they're like, and now dinner is served. So I'm like, whew. Now when we sit down, they're going to get the business. So we sit down at the table, the food comes out, as the food comes out, none of them are eating. And I'm now thinking about what? I don't want to be the first dude to start eating. I'm the new guy. So I sat there and I starved myself even though the food was right in front of me. Are y'all following the connections I'm trying to make here for y'all? So here I am, starving. And then eventually they're talking still. And now, while they're talking about the work, I'm like, you know what? You got to eat. This is ridiculous. You know what? If you're the first person, don't matter. Just be the first person, do it anyway. So I'm so caught up in the internal dialogue around my presence that I can't engage in an intellectual conversation that validates me. Y'all with me still? That's young folks. You know that, right? So eventually I say, you know what? F this. I'm going to eat. I'm going to talk. This is ridiculous. So I go down to eat. And as I go down to eat, I stopped again. Why? I had never been to a dinner so fancy. There was 3 forks, no lie. There was 3 forks, 2 knives, 2 spoons, all the glasses around. I'm like, do I pick this glass or this glass? Like, the setup, y'all ain't with me. The setup was so outside of my norm that my hunger plus my misunderstanding of the rules of engagement inhibited me from being able to express my brilliance. Young folks in classrooms, the hunger of being from where they're from may not be physical hunger, a desire to be something. Right? That thirst for being valued and seen is the same hunger that I had physically that was not addressed in schools. And then the right knife and fork is the respectability around who you're supposed to be before you can even learn. That's violence against who they are. That's why we got achievement gaps. This is not a function of intelligence or brilliance or ability. It's a function of the inability to be able to feed the hunger of wanting to be something and the structure of the school that inhibits them from being able to get where they want to go. So our job to recruit them is to give them that. Now, this is going to sound crazy. I've been saying a lot of crazy things today, but it's all right. But at some point, that thirst to be something got to be fed by telling them they are something. You want to talk about math and science and English and social studies. Where's the self-confidence class? Where's the affirmation pedagogy? Where's the talk to young folks to hold up a mirror in front of them? And we're going to talk to them teachers in a few weeks about this. When you hold a mirror in front of them, I'm sorry, I'm talking about my other folks, Meredith and them. You hold a mirror in front of them and you say, you stare at yourself in the mirror and don't look away. And here are things that you say back to yourself until you start to believe it. We have a society that robs young folks of their humanity on a regular basis. And there is no mechanism in schools for replenishing what's been stolen.
Wow.
You're like, why do they do these things for attention? They just want to be seen. I went through this trauma as a 30-something-year-old. I want to make some sense with y'all. As a 30-something-year-old academic, imagine an 11-year-old or 12-year-old kid who doesn't have the words to be able to describe what they're experiencing, but the experience is very real. That we have no pedagogical model to be able to showcase how this gets done. Y'all with me? Look, I think how am I on time, y'all? I don't want to OD now. I got to make sure. Because I got so much sauce here, and I already went to I'm already at an hour. But I'm a
Keep going.
oh, sis, that's love.
Yeah. OG. Keep
Oh, hey, you know,
you the first part of it.
I don't want to go too far. I'm going to just give y'all, can I just give y'all 2 more things? Now the 2 more, I'm going to give you 2 more things, okay? There's a historical phenomena among folks of color that always dies and comes back in different forms since the 1900s till present. It's the phenomena of the Oreo. Now, what's an Oreo? Some folks say cookie. Can I go here or not? You sure? You see, the Oreo cookie has been used as a metaphor for representing folks of color who in many ways don't connect to real folks of color. The Oreo cookie has 2 brown cookies on the outside and white filling on the inside. And the idea is for black folks who are black on the outside but white on the inside, meaning phenotypically black but representing and expressing white dominant, white supremacist narratives. Y'all with me? And let me tell you something. And if you ask an Oreo if they believe in white supremacist practices, they will say, of course not. I'm only interested in black excellence. But here's the thing. I want to deconstruct the cookie for a little bit. Can y'all indulge me?
Yes. Yes.
See that black cookie, or black cookie with white filling, it was my only second time saying this in public, because I'm writing about this in a new book, but I just, the spirit moving me to share, so I'm gonna share, all right? Yep. See, let's talk about the white filling for a minute. See, the white filling of the Oreo historically was supposed to have what we call cream, C-R-E-A-M. What is cream, y'all? Is that? Well, you got some, throw the W's up. Cream in a general sense, though, like outside of the hip hop references, it comes from a cow. It's essentially cream actually holds most of the nutrients when you milk the cow is in the cream. It is the best of what the cow has to offer if you talk about milk. Y'all still with me? So that cream, which is the cream of the crop, is whiteness. And whiteness has been attached to being the best. Y'all with me still? But this perverse notion of the whiteness being the best cannot maintain itself if there were not brown cookies holding it up. It ain't about black folks being white on the inside. It's about black folks who are black folks maintaining the excellence of the cream that would fall to pieces if the black things ain't hold it up. Y'all with me still? Now let me take it one step further. Can I? Yes, sir. You see, now the Food and Drug Administration, they called Oreo and they said, listen, Oreo, you keep saying you got cream in the inside of these cookies, but when we looked further, it's not really cream. It has nutrients, but when we looked at it, it's not actual cream at all. So Oreo said, oh, don't say nothing to nobody. If it's not cream, C-R-E-A-M, we gonna call it C-R-E-M-E. So it sounds like cream, but it don't have the same nutrients as cream. Now, the black cookies holding it up don't necessarily know that the cream they thought they were holding up is really just C-R-E-M-E. Y'all with me still? Now, so you mean this idealized whiteness, go to college, be great, and be like, it's not really cream? It's not really helpful? No, but beyond that, we discovered that the CREME actually contains titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is a chemical that's used to keep things white, literally. And titanium dioxide, when ingested in amounts that are too high, is a known carcinogenic. Meaning, the whiteness that you're maintaining ain't really CREAM, it's actually CREME, and if you consume too much of it, it's gonna kill you. Now, when we deconstruct this even further, we discover that the reason we knew there was titanium dioxide in the middle of the fake cream was because the whiteness of the Oreo was so seductive to people globally that there were folks in China who actually wanted to get the formula for titanium dioxide so they could make their items white as well. The superiority of whiteness is a global enterprise, is what y'all ain't even ready for this work. Because I'm dropping jewels, I know I'm dropping jewels, shit. So, we got a global enterprise of whiteness that is being consumed by black folks who are also holding it up. Yeah, see, but we didn't know it was dangerous till somebody found that formula, deconstructed it, and found out that the same thing that we're using to whiten the Oreo is the same thing they use to whiten paint, and the same thing they use to whiten cars, and the same thing they use to whiten plastic. Meaning, it was never supposed to be ingested to begin with. Y'all ain't with me. So for us to be academically viable, for us to connect young folks to this work, the anchor of the work can't be focused on the ingestion of white supremacist ideals and ideologies. It actually necessarily has to be focused on the expression of hoodness, the idea of being equally as hood, as academic, as an actual phenomenon got to be the anchor of all our collective pedagogies. If respectability is the anchor of your instruction, you will not get kids to want to teach, and you will not get them to stay in school. And the ones that stay end up being the ones who were weak enough to consume something that killed the part of themselves that was their actual magic. You know, the hoodness is vibranium. Y'all ain't even want me to. I'm gonna stop because I think I'm going too far. You see, you know how vibranium in Black Panther was hidden in plain sight. Wakanda was there. What they had, when you fly over, it was right there. Cats just ain't know that the magic of us is right there. You go to any hood in Philly right now and ask a young person to spit dreams and nightmares. Ask them, any one of them. I ain't got to do the experiment. Huh? They know the whole joint, inside, outside, backwards, expression, etc. That is magic for instruction. Because we were the first one, why are they so interested in that and not academic stuff? That. You better get that Dreams and Nightmare instrumental, play that in your classroom, right? You better talk about mixed struggle and what they could do differently to interrupt that narrative. Let's talk about the larger bio. Like, all of that they do already is it. Not perverse notions of cultural relevance. This idea of embracing the ratchetness. Huh? This idea of constructing a ratchetemic identity. Huh? Shout to Brittany Cooper, who talks about the academic can be ratchet. Huh? You in the third grade, you hood, you could be smart. Like, my biggest badge of honor for me has never been the credentials I hold. It doesn't define me by any stretch of the imagination. What defines me as who I am is that if I go to my hood, my past is never revoked. When I go back to the Bronx and I'm on Fordham, they be like, there go Doc, it was good.
Yep.
I'll be at the corner store, I might just kick it for like 15 minutes just to kick it.
Right.
Y'all with me?
Right. And
And that to me is my badge of honor. Because if I have that, and then I can go to the Ivies and spit that theory when I need to, that's the,
right.
because listen, somebody who ain't never had it can never get it.
Right.
That's, the assault on black cool is a function of the inability of folks who lack it to have it. It's in their interest to demonize cool and relegate cool as anti-academic. Because if you had something that could be academic and I could never get it, even if I tried, it wouldn't make sense. Because I make you superior to me. Y'all with me? So you gotta own and claim your superiority by owning and claiming who you are. That is how we recruit more black males into teaching. That's how we get black males to not burn out, because they know it ain't about them. It's about the work we do for each other. And if we could do that, then there's a path towards a better future and better alternatives and better narratives and better truths and better authenticities, right? Oreo no more, right? Teach and be ratchetemic. Thank you. Thank you, man. I got a few, yeah, I got a few. Vince, my man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's give it up for Dr. Emden one more time.
Appreciate y'all.